the hierarchy of North American werewolf society, there are truths that never change. Alphas lead, betas follow, and omegas. Omegas exist to carry the future. That's not cruelty. That's biology. That's 200 years of treaty law written in blood and moonlight on the Badlands of Nevada in 1820, when the Great War finally ended, and the packs agreed to stop tearing each other apart. The treaty established order, structure, rules that kept the peace. And one of those rules was simple, brutal, and absolute. An omega who cannot bear children has no place in pack society. No exceptions, no appeals, no second chances. In 2019, 127 omegas across North America received diagnoses of infertility. Most accepted their fate quietly. They left their packs, disappeared into human cities, lived out their days pretending to be something they weren't. But 23 of those diagnoses came from a single clinic in Seattle, Washington, and only one omega refused to believe it. Her name was Sienna Mercer. She was 22 years old. She had no college degree, no career, no special skills beyond baking cookies and organizing pack events. She was by every measure a textbook omega. Soft-spoken, nurturing, built for motherhood in a world where motherhood was the only currency that mattered. They told her she was broken. They were wrong. But proving that would cost her everything she'd ever known. And it would expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of pack governance, a scheme built on the bodies of discarded women in the waists of a man in a white coat. This is her story. The rain came down in sheets. Not the romantic kind of rain you see in movies, soft and atmospheric beating on windows while lovers hold each other close. This was Pacific Northwest rain, cold, relentless. The kind that soaked through your coat in 30 seconds and made the Space Needle disappear into low-gray clouds that seemed to press down on the city like a wet wool blanket. Sienna Mercer sat in the passenger seat of a matte black Range Rover, watching droplets race down the tinted window. Her cardigan was pulled tight around her shoulders even though the heat was on. Even though Declan always kept the car warm for her, she was nervous. That was normal, she told herself. Pre-wedding jitters, everyone got them, except this wasn't about the wedding. Not really, this was about the appointment, the final medical clearance before the mating ceremony. Standard protocol for any omega marrying into a major pack, especially one as powerful as the Sterlings. The Black River pack controlled shipping lanes from Vancouver to Portland, $800 million in annual revenue. Corporate headquarters in downtown Seattle, shipping terminals in Tacoma, distribution centers in every major port city on the West Coast. Declan Sterling was the heir to all of it. 25 years old, 6'3", dark hair that fell just slightly too long across his forehead in a way that made him look like old Hollywood instead of corporate America. Eyes the color of amber when his wolf was close to the surface. And he'd chosen her, Sienna Mercer, daughter of Marcus Mercer, a single omega father who worked the checkout counter at a Safeway on Capitol Hill. No money, no status, no pack influence. Just a girl who'd grown up playing in the same parks as Declan, who'd shared her lunch with him in elementary school, who'd held his hand at the autumn festival when they were 10 years old and never really let go. Childhood sweethearts, a rarity in high society pack dynamics where marriages were usually arranged for political advantage and bloodline purity. But Declan had defied his father, had stood in front of the pack council and declared that Sienna was his chosen mate, that the bond was real, that he would marry her regardless of her status. And Alpha Richard Sterling had eventually agreed, because Sienna was young, healthy, and her bloodline, while unremarkable, was pure omega. 3 generations back, all omegas. Good breeding stock, as the old wolves said, capable of producing strong alpha heirs. That was the test today. Confirmation that she could give Declan what every alpha needed, sons. The Range Rover pulled up to the entrance of Mercy General Hospital, not the main entrance, the private wing. The section reserved exclusively for Black River pack members, where human doctors never went, and pack physicians handled everything from routine checkups to emergency trauma with a discretion that money and power could buy. Declan put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. "I'll wait here," he said. His voice was steady, calm, the voice of a future alpha who'd been trained since birth to never show uncertainty. But Sienna knew him, had known him for 12 years. She could see the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed once against the steering wheel before he caught himself and stopped. He was nervous too. "It's just a routine," Sienna said softly. "Dr. Vane said it would only take an hour." Declan nodded, leaned over and kissed her forehead. His lips were warm against her skin. "I know," he said. "I'll be here when you're done." Then we go to the estate for the final ceremony prep. Tonight was the engagement party, 200 guests. The diamond room set up with crystal chandeliers and ice sculptures and a string quartet that cost more than Sienna's father made in a year. Tomorrow night was the full moon, the mating ceremony itself, and then Sienna Mercer would become Sienna Sterling, Luna of the Black River Pack. She smiled, squeezed his hand, got out of the car. The rain hit her immediately. She ducked her head and ran for the entrance, her flat splashing through puddles, her cardigan already soaked through by the time she reached the automatic doors. Inside, the private wings smelled like lavender and antiseptic, soft lighting, expensive art on the walls. A reception desk staffed by a beta woman in scrubs who smiled professionally and checked Sienna's name off a list. "Dr. Vane is ready for you," the woman said. "Exam room 3, down the hall, last door on the right." Sienna walked down the corridor. Her footsteps made no sound on the plush carpet. Behind closed doors, she could hear the murmur of voices, the beep of medical equipment, the cry of a newborn pup somewhere in the maternity section. Life. Continuing. Generations being born. That would be her soon, holding Declan's child, surrounded by pack members who would celebrate the continuation of the Sterling bloodline. She reached exam room 3, knocked once. "Come in, doctor." Silas Vane stood with his back to the door, washing his hands at the sink. He was 45 years old, average height, thinning hair combed carefully over a spot that was going bald. Wire-rimmed glasses that he was constantly adjusting. He'd been the Sterling Pack physician for 15 years. Before that, he'd published 47 research papers on omega biology and alpha genetics. He'd spoken at conferences in Geneva and Tokyo. He'd consulted for 12 major packs across North America. If anyone understood the complexities of pack reproduction, it was Silas Vane. "Sienna," he said without turning around, "have a seat on the exam table." She did. The paper crinkled under her. The room was cold, medical, a far cry from the warmth of Declan's car. Vane dried his hands, turned around. He didn't smile. That should have been the first warning. "We've completed your blood work," he said. His voice was flat, clinical. The voice of a man delivering information, not comfort. "The hormone panel, the ultrasound from last week, the genetic markers." He picked up a clipboard from the counter, held it against his chest like a shield. "And," Sienna asked, her voice sounded small in the sterile room. Vane looked at her for the first time. His eyes behind the glasses were unreadable. "There won't be a ceremony, Sienna." The air left the room, not slowly, not gradually. It was gone in an instant, sucked away like someone had opened an airlock, and Sienna was sitting in vacuum, struggling to breathe. "I don't understand," she managed. Vane set the clipboard down, began listing things off like grocery items. No emotion, no softness, just facts. "Your hormone levels are severely abnormal. Omega-tropic hormone is 0.2 nanomoles per liter. Normal range for a fertile omega is 3 to 9. Your follicle-stimulating hormone is 42 milli-international units per milliliter. That's menopausal range. Your ultrasound showed a uterine lining of 1.8 millimeters. You need 10 to 15 to support a pregnancy." He paused, adjusted his glasses. "We also tracked your heat cycles over the past 8 months. You haven't had a true heat signature since March." Sienna shook her head. "That's not... I had a heat last month, October. Declan and I were..." "Phantom symptoms," Vane interrupted. "Psychosomatic response to your desire to breed." "The machinery doesn't lie, Sienna. Your body is telling us something very clear." He walked closer, looked down at her. "You have acute uterine atrophy combined with a severe deficiency in omega-tropic hormones. To put it plainly, Sienna, you are infertile, completely barren. You will never carry a pup. Not for Declan, not for anyone." The words landed like physical blows. Barren. In human society, that word was outdated. Offensive. A relic of a time when women were valued only for childbearing. In pack society, it was a death sentence. An omega who couldn't breed had no function, no purpose, no value to the hierarchy that had existed for 2 centuries. "Check again," Sienna whispered. Her hands were trembling. "Please, we were intimate last month during my heat. I felt different. "I've already sent the digital report to Declan's father," Vane said. "Before you told me, protocol Ms. Mercer, as is protocol." Sienna's head snapped up. "Alpha Richard Sterling, as is protocol." Sienna's head snapped up. "You told them before you told me. Protocol Ms. Mercer, the alpha line takes precedence. Always." He walked back to the counter, began washing his hands again, dismissing her without saying the words. "You can collect your things from the Sterling estate," he said over the sound of running water. "I'm sure Alpha Richard will make arrangements for your transition back to Wherever you came from. Wherever you came from. Like she was a piece of furniture being returned to the store. Like 12 years with Declan meant nothing. Like the bond they'd felt since childhood was just a fantasy, easily severed by numbers on a lab report. Sienna stood up. Her legs felt like jelly. The room tilted slightly and she had to grip the exam table to keep from falling. "This is wrong," she said, but her voice had no strength, no conviction. Because what did she know? She was just an Omega. No medical training, no scientific expertise, just a girl who baked cookies and organized pack picnics and thought that love mattered more than biology. Vane didn't respond, just kept washing his hands. Sienna walked to the door, opened it, stepped into the hallway, and that's when she felt it. A flutter, deep in her belly, like butterfly wings, like something alive and moving. She put her hand to her stomach, stood very still. There it was again. Not one heartbeat. Two. Thump, 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 faint, almost imperceptible. But there. "He's wrong," her wolf whispered in the back of her mind. The voice she'd been taught to trust since her first shift at 13. "He's lying." But nobody questioned Dr. Silas Vane. Sienna didn't remember walking to the parking lot. One moment she was standing in the hallway, hand on her stomach, feeling that impossible double heartbeat. The next she was outside in the rain, soaked to the skin, staring at Declan's Range Rover. He was leaning against the hood, also no, texting. The rain beaded on his leather jacket, but he didn't seem to notice. When he looked up and saw her, his face changed. It went from neutral to something else, something Sienna had never seen before. Hard, cold, closed off. "Declan," her voice came out broken. He took a step back as she reached for him. That small movement hurt more than anything Vane had said. "Get in the car," Declan said. His voice was low, controlled. "My father is convening the council at the estate. We're settling this now." "Settling what?" Sienna's heart was hammering. "Declan, I don't understand. The tests have to be wrong. I felt something. Inside. I think I'm—" "The bond exists to produce an heir, Sienna." He cut her off. His eyes flashed amber for just a second, wolf close to the surface. "Without that, what are we? You know the laws. A Sterling Alpha cannot mate with a Barren Omega. It weakens the pack. It ends the line." He opened the passenger door. "Get in." She did, because what else could she do? The drive to the Sterling estate took 35 minutes. Declan didn't speak, didn't look at her, just drove with both hands on the wheel, jaw clenched, staring straight ahead. Sienna watched the rain streak across the window, watched the gray trees of the Pacific Northwest blur past, and she clutched her stomach. Because the double heartbeat was still there. Faint, steady, impossible. Dr. Vane had said she was empty, but her wolf knew better. The diamond room was the crown jewel of the Sterling family compound. 20,000 square feet of polished marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Puget Sound. Crystal chandeliers imported from Austria hung from a ceiling painted with murals of the Great War scenes of wolves running under a blood moon. Tonight it was set up for a celebration. White roses everywhere, tables draped in silk, a champagne fountain in the corner that cost more than Sienna's father's annual salary. The string quartet warming up near the grand piano. 200 guests were expected. The elite of Seattle Pack Society, alphas from neighboring territories, beta families with old money and older bloodlines, even a few council members from the North American Pack Treaty headquarters in Nevada, all here to celebrate the union of Declan Sterling and Sienna Mercer. Except when Sienna walked through the doors, Declan didn't take her hand. He walked ahead of her, straight to the center of the room where his father stood. Alpha Richard Sterling was 55 years old, broad-shouldered, silver hair combed back from a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He wore a suit that cost $8,000 and a watch that cost more than a house. Next to him stood a woman Sienna knew all too well, Lydia Banks, 27 years old, tall, blonde, sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. The daughter of Aldrich Banks, a beta who sat on the territorial council and owned half the commercial real estate in Bellevue. Lydia wore a red dress, silk, form-fitting, the kind of dress that made a statement, and she was smiling. Not a big smile, just a small quirk of her lips, the smile of someone who'd won something. The crowd quieted as Declan reached the center of the room. The quartet stopped playing. 200 people turned to watch. Sienna stood near the entrance, alone, her cardigan dripping rainwater onto the marble, her flat squeaking slightly as she shifted her weight. "Friends," Declan's voice boomed. It filled the room easily. He'd been trained for this since birth. Public speaking, command presence, the voice of an alpha who would one day lead thousands. Family, pack members, we gathered here tonight to celebrate a union, but the moon goddess demands truth above all things. He paused. The room was silent except for the rain beating against the windows. It has come to light that Sienna Mercer is unfit to carry the Sterling lineage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. People stared at Sienna with expressions that ranged from pity to disgust. Dr. Vane has confirmed total infertility, Declan continued. His voice didn't waver, didn't crack. A Sterling Alpha cannot bond with a Barren Omega. The law is clear. The precedent is absolute. He turned, finally looked at Sienna. His eyes were cold, dead, like he was looking at a stranger. Therefore, he said, I, Declan Sterling, future Alpha of Black River Pack, hereby reject you, Sienna Mercer, as my mate. The bond broke. It wasn't metaphorical, it was physical. Sienna felt it snap in her chest like a rope pulled too tight, like ribs cracking, like her heart being torn in half by invisible hands. She fell to her knees, couldn't breathe, couldn't see. The pain was blinding. White hot, all-consuming. This was what rejection felt like. The severing of a bond that had been growing for 12 years. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered promise in the dark. All of it torn away in a single sentence. Pack bonds were metaphysical, spiritual, written into wolf DNA by forces older than human language. And when they broke, they took pieces of you with them. Sienna gasped for air, clutched her chest, felt her wolf howling inside her mind, a sound of pure anguish that no one else could hear. I accept your rejection, she whispered. The ritual words, required by pack law, because refusing a rejection meant being hunted, meant being considered rogue, meant a death sentence. So she said the words, and felt the last thread between them sever. Get her out of here. Alpha Richard's voice was cold, dismissive, like he was talking about removing garbage. And bring Lydia forward. We have a future to secure. Security guards appeared, men Sienna had known since childhood, men she'd baked cookies for during pack gatherings. They grabbed her arms, lifted her to her feet. Her legs didn't want to work. As they dragged her toward the doors, Sienna saw Lydia step up to Declan, saw her place a possessive hand on his chest, saw Declan look down at her. No emotion, just acceptance. The door slammed shut, and Sienna was outside, in the rain, alone. The security guards released her arms. One of them handed her a plastic bag. Her purse, her phone, the few personal items she'd left at the estate over the years. There's a taxi waiting, one guard said. Not unkind, just doing his job. It'll take you wherever you need to go. Where did she need to go? Back to her father's one-bedroom apartment, back to a life of checkout counters and expired coupons and never quite having enough. Back to being nobody. Sienna stood in the rain. Let it soak through her cardigan. Let it wash away the tears that were streaming down her face. And she felt it again. That flutter, deep in her belly. Thump, 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 thump. 2 heartbeats. You're wrong, she whispered into the storm. All of you. You're wrong. But there was no one there to hear her. The Honda Civic's check engine light had been on since Montana. Sienna ignored it, just like she ignored the growl in her stomach, the ache in her back, the fact that she'd been driving for 72 hours with maybe 6 hours of sleep total, pulled over at rest stops and truck stops, and once in a Walmart parking lot where she dozed for 90 minutes before the security guard knocked on her window. She had $4,000, cash, withdrawn from her savings account at a Chase Bank in Spokane before she threw her phone into a dumpster and cut off the last way anyone could track her. She knew how the Sterlings worked. If they found out she was pregnant after declaring her barren, they wouldn't apologize. They wouldn't take her back. They would take the babies and dispose of her. Because an Omega who made the pack look foolish, who exposed the lies of their trusted physician who carried heirs they'd publicly rejected. That Omega was a liability. Better to eliminate the problem, raise the children in secret, pretend Sienna Mercer had never existed. So she drove, east, then south, following highways she'd never heard of through states she'd never visited, past farmland and mountains in vast stretches of nothing, putting distance between herself and Seattle, between herself and the pack that had thrown her away like garbage. The Idaho rest stop had a vending machine and a bathroom that smelled like industrial cleaner. Sienna bought a package of peanut butter crackers and a bottle of water, ate standing up, watched trucks come and go on Interstate 84. In the bathroom mirror, she looked like a ghost, pale, circles under her eyes, hair lank and unwashed. cardigan stained with coffee she'd spilled somewhere in Wyoming. But when she put her hand on her stomach, she could feel them. 2 lives, growing, thriving despite everything. Despite rejection, despite the bond breaking, despite Dr. Vane's diagnosis, her wolf had been right. He'd lied. But why? That was the question that kept circling through Sienna's exhausted brain. Why would a respected physician, a man who had dedicated his life to pack medicine, falsify test results? Money blackmail, some vendetta she didn't know about, or had someone paid him, the thought crystallized as Sienna stared at her reflection. Lydia had been there, at the estate, wearing red, smiling that small, satisfied smile. Lydia had stepped up to Declan the moment Sienna was removed, like she'd been waiting, like she'd known exactly what would happen. She couldn't do this alone, Sienna whispered to the mirror. She needed help. She needed a doctor willing to lie. But Sienna had no proof, no evidence, no way to prove anything. She was just a Barren Omega. That's what they'd called her, what they'd always call her, unless she survived long enough to prove them wrong. Sienna splashed cold water on her face, dried off with rough paper towels, walked back to her car. She had $3,600 left, no destination, no plan, just a need to disappear, and a promise to the 2 heartbeats inside her. I'll keep you safe, she said quietly. Whatever it takes, I'll keep you safe. She started the car, pulled back onto the interstate, heading south, toward Colorado, toward mountains where packs didn't go, toward a life she'd have to build from nothing, because the Omega they'd thrown away was already dead. What came next would have to be someone new, someone stronger, someone who could survive alone. The rain followed her all the way to the state line. December 2019, Oak Haven, Colorado. The town didn't exist on most maps, not the digital ones anyway. Google Maps showed a blank space in the Rockies about 40 miles west of Boulder, where the highways turned to county roads, and the county roads turned to gravel, and the gravel eventually just stopped. But Oak Haven was real. A mining town that had died sometime in the 1950s when the silver ran out and the company packed up and left. What remained was a main street with 6 buildings still standing, a population that hovered around 300, and a gas station that only took cash because the credit card machine had been broken since 2012 and nobody bothered to fix it. The kind of place people came to disappear, which made it perfect. Sienna found the trailer park on her 4th day in town, Valley View Mobile Home Community. Though there was no valley and no view, just a gravel lot with 23 trailers in various states of decay parked in crooked rows. The manager was a human woman in her 60s who smoked menthol cigarettes and asked exactly one question. You running from the law or a man? A man, Sienna said. The woman nodded. $350 a month, cash, first and last up front, no drugs. No loud music after 10. You cause trouble, you're gone. Sienna handed over $700. The woman handed her a key. Number 17. Water's included. Electricity ain't it? Good luck, honey. Trailer number 17 was 8 feet wide and maybe 30 feet long. Paneled walls, linoleum floor, a kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge. A bathroom so small you had to stand in the shower to close the door. A bed that folded down from the wall. It smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke and somebody else's life. But it was hers. Sienna set her bag down, sat on the bed, let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she stopped, washed her face in the tiny sink, and went looking for work. Saul's 24-hour diner. The help wanted sign was handwritten on notebook paper taped to the inside of the window, next to a stuffed moose head that looked like it had been there since the Carter administration. Graveyard shift, must be reliable. Apply within. Sienna pushed through the door. A bell jangled. The diner was exactly what you'd expect. Red vinyl booths, formica counters, a jukebox in the corner that probably hadn't worked in 20 years. The smell of coffee and fryer grease and pie. 2 customers, both truckers judging by the rigs parked outside, both nursing coffee and looking at their phones. Behind the counter stood a man who had to be Saul. 70s, bald except for a white fringe around his ears, stained apron, cigarette tucked behind one ear, even though there were no smoking signs everywhere. Help you, his voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. I'm here about the chum, Sienna said. Saul looked her up and down, took in the cheap clothes, the circles under her eyes, the way she stood like someone who hadn't slept in a real bed for a week. You got experience? No. You got a social security card? Sienna hesitated. Using her real identity meant the Sterlings could track her if they looked hard enough. I can get one, she said carefully. Saul grunted, poured himself a cup of coffee. Graveyards 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week, $12 an hour. Tips are yours, job's simple. Pour coffee, take orders. Don't burn the place down. You think you can handle that? Yes. You running from someone? Everyone in this town asked that question. Yes. Saul nodded, took a sip of coffee. Graveyard starts tonight. You got a name you want me to use? Sienna thought for exactly 2 seconds. Kate. All right, Kate, you're hired. Show up at 9:45. I'll train you for 15 minutes and then you're on your own. That was it. No background check, no references, no questions about why a 22-year-old woman with no experience was willing to work graveyard shift in a dying mining town for $12 an hour. Just a job. Sienna worked graveyard shift at Saul's 24-hour diner for the next 4 months. She learned to pour coffee without looking, learned which truckers tipped and which ones didn't, learned to smile and nod and deflect personal questions with the ease of someone who'd spent her whole life being invisible. The Omega skills translated better than she'd expected. And every 2 weeks, when Saul handed her cash in a wrinkled envelope, she put half in a coffee can under her bed and spent the other half on food. Because by January, the hunger had started. January 2020, month 4. It wasn't normal hunger. Sienna had been hungry before. Growing up in her father's apartment, there'd been plenty of nights when dinner was ramen noodles and optimism. This was different. This was a voracious, consuming need that woke her up at 3 in the morning with her stomach cramping and her mouth watering and her wolf clawing at the inside of her mind screaming, meat, meat, raw meat. She started buying steak at the grocery store, the cheap cuts, the ones marked down because they were a day from expiring. She'd cook them rare, so rare they were barely touched by heat. And she'd eat them with her hands over the sink, blood running down her wrists, her wolf purring with satisfaction. It helped, for a few hours. Then the hunger came back. By February, she was spending nearly all her tips on meat. Steak, ground beef, whole chickens. Once a package of chicken livers that the checkout girl rang up with an expression that said she didn't want to know. Sienna ate them raw in the trailer, told herself it was fine. Told herself this was normal Omega pregnancy behavior. But Omegas carrying normal pups didn't need this much protein, and normal pregnancies didn't make you feel like you were feeding something wild. She knew what it meant, of course. She was carrying alpha blood, Declan's blood, and alpha pups needed more, took more, demanded more from the Omega body that housed them. But there was something else too, a sense of 2 distinct energies inside her, not just 2 heartbeats, 2 completely different forces. One felt like fire, hot, aggressive, constantly moving. The other felt like ice, cold, calculating, perfectly still. Fire and ice, and both of them getting stronger every day. February 20th, 2020, the blizzard. The storm hit Oak Haven on a Tuesday night, not unusual for Colorado in February, but this one was different. This one came down from the mountains like something alive, howling and furious, dropping 6 inches of snow in the first hour and showing no signs of stopping. By midnight, the roads were impassable. The power was out in half the town, and Saul's 24-hour diner was completely empty except for one customer. The man had been coming in for a week, always late, always alone, always sat in the back booth with his back to the wall and his eyes on the door. He was massive, easily 6'5", shoulders that strained the fabric of his dark flannel shirt, hands that looked like they could crush concrete, a scar running through his left eyebrow that pulled his face into a permanent expression, somewhere between dangerous and amused, and eyes the color of stormy seas. He ordered the same thing every night, black coffee, apple pie, and he left a $20 tip on a $6 check. Sienna had tried not to think about what that meant. She tried not to notice the way he watched her. Not creepy, not sexual, just aware, like he was cataloging information, filing it away. She tried not to notice that he didn't smell entirely human. Tonight, with the blizzard rattling the windows and the wind howling like a living thing, he was the only customer. Sienna approached his table with the coffee pot. Her back was aching. The twins were restless. She was 6 months along now, though you could barely tell under the baggy hoodie she wore. More coffee? She asked. The man looked up and sniffed the air. It was subtle, quick. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But Sienna froze because she knew that gesture, knew what it meant when wolves tested the air. You smell like distress, the man said. His voice was a deep rumble, like thunder over a mountain range. And you smell like 2 very powerful storms. The coffee pot slipped from Sienna's hands. It shattered. Hot liquid splashed over her worn sneakers. Ceramic shards scattered across the floor. I don't know what you're talking about, Sienna said. Her voice came out too high, too scared. She turned to run, to the kitchen, to the back door, to anywhere. But the world tilted. The energy demands of the twins had been draining her for months, faster than she could replenish. And she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning because she'd spent her last $20 on ground beef that was already gone. Her vision went black at the edges. The floor rushed up. She didn't hit it. Strong arms caught her, lifted her like she weighed nothing. Easy, that thunder voice said. I've got you. Sienna tried to fight, tried to pull away, but her body wouldn't cooperate. The last thing she remembered before consciousness slipped away completely was the smell of pine and wood smoke and wolf. Alpha, a known location. When Sienna woke up, she wasn't in the diner. She was lying on a leather couch in front of a fireplace. Warm, dry, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like cedar. Panic surged. She sat up too fast. The room spun. She clutched her stomach protectively. Easy, that voice said again. The man was sitting in an armchair across the room, whittling a piece of wood with a knife that looked like it could skin a bear. He didn't look up. Where am I? Sienna demanded. Her voice was steadier than she felt. What do you want? You're in my cabin, about 15 miles outside Oak Haven, and I don't want anything except to make sure you don't die. He set down the wood, finally looked at her. Up close, his eyes were even more intense. Gray, clear, the eyes of someone who'd seen things and survived them. You fainted, he said. Malnutrition, dehydration, exhaustion. Take your pick. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't raw meat? Sienna didn't answer. The man stood up, walked into the light of the fireplace. My name is Gabriel Blackwood, he said. My family was exiled from the Coastal Alliance 10 years ago for refusing to bow to the Sterlings. I lead a small rogue pack up in these mountains. We survive. We stay out of pack politics, and we help Omegas when we can. He gestured to a plate on the table, piled high with venison, cooked rare, still steaming. Eat. Sienna stared at the food, her stomach cramped, her mouth watered, but she didn't move. How did you know, she asked quietly, about the twins? Gabriel sat back down, picked up his whittling. I can feel their aura from across the room, he said. Two distinct signatures, both alpha blood, both incredibly powerful. You're an Omega carrying alpha twins, which shouldn't be possible after a bond rejection. But here you are. He looked at her. They're Declan Sterlings, aren't they? Sienna's silence was answer enough. He rejected you, Gabriel continued. It wasn't a question. Public rejection, bond severed, and they told you that you were barren. Dr. Vane, Sienna whispered. He said I had uterine atrophy, that I'd never carry a pup. Gabriel's knife stopped moving. Silas Vane. You know him. I know of him. Gabriel's voice had gone cold. Dangerous. That man is a snake. If he said you were barren and you're sitting here 6 months pregnant with twins, he didn't make a mistake, Sienna. He lied. The words hung in the air. Why would he lie? Gabriel set down the knife, stood up, walked to the window and looked out at the blizzard. Because someone paid him to, he said. In pack politics, removing an inconvenient Omega is easy. You just make sure she can't produce heirs. Then the alpha has legal grounds to reject her. Clean, simple, no blood on anyone's hands. He turned back to her. If Declan doesn't produce an heir within his first year as alpha, the leadership can be challenged by the council. Someone wanted Declan weak, or someone wanted you out of the way so they could place their own bloodline on the throne. Realization hit Sienna like cold water. Lydia, Gabriel nodded. The Banks family sits on the territorial council. Aldrich Banks has been trying to merge his bloodline with the Sterlings for 20 years. What better way than to remove the childhood sweetheart and install his daughter? Sienna looked down at her stomach, at the twins who were impossible, who shouldn't exist. If they find out, she said quietly, they'll kill me, take the babies, raise them as Declan's heirs and pretend I never existed. Yes, Gabriel said, simply, honestly. They will. He walked over, knelt in front of the couch so they were eye level. You're in my territory now, Sienna. Sterling authority ends at the state line. You can stay here. Eat my food. Get strong. I'll teach you to hunt, to fight, to survive. Why? Sienna asked. Why help me? You don't know me. Gabriel looked at her for a long moment. Because the law of the wild is different from the law of the court, he said quietly. We protect the mothers. And because I haven't sensed power like that coming from a womb in 2 centuries. He stood up, threw another log on the fire. Those aren't just alphas, Sienna. They're something else. Something the packs haven't seen since the Great War. He looked at her. Rest now, eat, build your strength. Because when they're born, the storm is just beginning. Sienna reached for the plate of venison. And for the first time since November, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. 3 months later, May 15th, 2020, blood moon eclipse. Gabriel's cabin was hidden behind a waterfall in a valley the locals called Dead Man's Drop. Inaccessible by road, only reachable on foot through terrain that would kill anyone who didn't know the paths. Perfect hiding place. Sienna had spent 3 months here, learning, training, growing stronger. Gabriel taught her to track game, to read weather patterns, to hide her scent with mud and pine sap, to move through the forest like a ghost. He taught her pack law, the loopholes, the precedents, the ways a clever Omega could use the system against itself, and he prepared her for the birth, because they both knew it wouldn't be normal. The contractions started at sunset, right as the blood moon began to rise, right as the eclipse started to darken the sky. Sienna was in the main room when the first one hit. It wasn't pain, not yet, it was pressure. It was like something inside of her had decided it was time and would not be denied. Gabriel, she called. He was outside chopping firewood. He dropped the axe and sprinted inside. One look at her face and he knew. How far apart? That was the first one, Tireno. He checked his watch, started laying out supplies, clean towels, hot water, wolfsbane extract for the pain. Listen to me, Sienna, Gabriel said. His voice was calm, commanding, pure alpha trying to impose order on chaos. You are strong. You are an Omega built to endure. Breathe, focus. You can do this. The second contraction hit 20 minutes later. It shattered the bedside lamp. Not knocked it over, shattered it. The bulb exploded in a shower of sparks as a wave of telekinetic force pulsed from Sienna's stomach. Gabriel shielded her face with his arm. God above, he whispered, because this was impossible. Pups didn't manifest abilities until puberty. That was biological law, written in wolf DNA. To show power in the womb meant these weren't normal pups. They were something else entirely. The labor lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of Sienna's screams matching the howl of the wind outside. 6 hours of the cabin groaning under supernatural pressure. 6 hours of reality bending around two lives that refused to wait any longer. The wooden beams of the roof creaked. The fire in the fireplace burned blue. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds, then spiked back up. And through it all, Gabriel stayed, calm, steady, talking Sienna through each contraction, telling her to push, telling her to breathe, being the anchor she needed. As the blood moon reached its peak, turning the snow outside a gruesome shade of rust red, the first twin crowned. Push, Sienna, now. With a final earth-shattering scream, the first baby slid into the world. Gabriel caught him, tiny, furious, covered in fluid, and instead of crying, the newborn growled. A low, guttural sound that shouldn't have been possible for something minutes old. It's a boy, Gabriel said quickly, wrapping him in a towel. He's massive, Sienna, and he's growling, still growling, like a wolf pup ready to fight. But there was no time to process that. The second twin was coming. The energy in the room shifted, from aggressive heat to icy cold. The temperature dropped again. Frost formed on the windows. 3 minutes later, the second boy arrived, silent. Not crying, not making any sound, but his eyes were open, bright blue eyes that shouldn't have been able to focus yet. Eyes that looked around the room with an intelligence that was deeply fundamentally wrong for a newborn. Gabriel cleaned them both, checked their breathing, their heartbeats, everything physically normal. Except nothing about this was normal. He handed them to Sienna. She was pale, translucent, her life force drained by 6 hours of supernatural birth. But as the two boys touched her skin, something miraculous happened. The bruises on her stomach faded. The color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing steadied. The bond. It wasn't just taking from her. It was feeding her too. What are they? Sienna whispered, looking down at two miracles that Dr. Vane had claimed didn't exist. Gabriel sank into the chair beside the bed, exhausted. Alphas, he said. True alphas. Not appointed, not elected, born. Sienna looked at the firstborn, the one who'd growled. He had a tuft of black hair like Declan. Jax, she said softly. She looked at the second, the quiet observer with the icy blue gaze. Cole. Gabriel tested the names. They felt heavy, important. You realize what this means, he said quietly. The last time twin alphas were born was 1820. The prophecy. The twins who united the feral packs and established the treaty. He stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the blood moon was fading. Dawn was coming. If Declan finds out, Gabriel said, he won't be the only one coming. The High Council will want them. The Government Bureau will want them. He turned back to her. These boys are weapons, Sienna, and everyone will want to control them. Sienna pulled the twins closer. Jax had finally stopped growling, was nursing now. Normal. Human. Cole still hadn't made a sound. Just watched everything with those ancient eyes. Then we stay hidden, Sienna said. Her voice was different now, harder. Certain. The soft Omega who'd bake cookies and organize pack picnics was gone. What remained was a mother. And mothers Gabriel knew were the most dangerous creatures in creation. 4 years later, May 2024, Dead Man's Drop, Colorado. The woman chopping firewood behind the cabin bore little resemblance to the soft Omega who'd fled Seattle 4 years ago. Sienna Mercer was lean now, all muscle and sinew, her skin tanned dark by the high-altitude sun. Hands calloused from axe handles and skinning knives. Hair pulled back in a practical braid that hadn't seen a salon since 2019. She brought the axe down, split the log clean in two, tossed the pieces under the growing pile. Winter in the Rockies required preparation. Even in May, especially at this elevation. Through the window she could see them, Jax and Cole, 4 years old but looking closer to 7, the accelerated growth rate that came with powerful alpha genetics. Jax was wrestling with a training dummy Gabriel had built, a log wrapped in burlap suspended from a tree branch. The boy attacked it with ferocity, his small hands shifted into claws, his baby teeth already showing the points of developing fangs. Focus, Gabriel's voice carried across the clearing. You're all rage, no control. Control wins fights. Rage gets you killed. Jax snarled, hit the dummy so hard it spun on its rope. 20 feet away, Cole sat cross-legged on a tree stump, reading a book. Physics textbook Gabriel had stolen from a library in Boulder. The boy's lips moved silently as he read absorbing concepts that college students struggled with. Fire and ice. That's what they'd become. Jax was impulse, emotion, physical power that he couldn't quite control yet. He'd had his first partial shift at 18 months. By 2, he could turn his hands to claws at will. By 3, he'd lifted a fallen log that weighed 200 pounds. Cole was calculation, strategy, the alpha command, that's what they called it. The voice, the ability to compel obedience with nothing but words and will. Cole had discovered it by accident when he was 2 years old. A grizzly had wandered near their camp, 600 pounds of muscle and claws and territorial aggression. Gabriel had reached for his rifle. Cole had looked at the bear and said one word, leave. The grizzly had whimpered, turned, run. A 2-year-old child had imposed his will on an apex predator. Gabriel had gone very quiet after that, had spent the next week teaching Cole never to use that power unless absolutely necessary, because power like that could be felt. And if the wrong people felt it, they'd come looking. Sienna set down the axe, wiped sweat from her forehead, walked to where Gabriel stood watching the boys train. They're getting too strong to hide, she said quietly. Gabriel didn't look at her. Just watched Jax attack the training dummy with single-minded fury. I know. Cole asked me yesterday why we don't live in a pack. He's starting to understand hierarchy, starting to realize he's different. Gabriel nodded. He asked me about the treaty last week, wanted to know why alpha power is limited by law. I gave him the sanitized version. What's the unsanitized version? That alphas like him are the reason the law exists. That unchecked alpha power leads to war. That the Great War killed thousands before the treaty established control. He finally looked at her. He suppressed me this morning. Sienna froze. What? Cole used the voice on me, didn't mean to. He just wanted a second helping of deer jerky. Looked at me and said, give it. And my wolf... Gabriel's jaw clenched. My wolf wanted to obey. I'm a seasoned alpha Sienna, 38 years old, led rogues for a decade, and a 4-year-old nearly brought me to my knees. They stood in silence, watching the boys who were growing too fast, too powerful, too dangerous to remain hidden. How much longer do we have? Sienna asked. Months, maybe weeks. Their energy signature is getting louder. Right now it's muffled by the mountains, the isolation. But if they have an emotional surge, if Cole uses the voice in anger, or Jax shifts completely, every alpha within 500 miles will feel it. Yes, Sienna looked at her sons. Jax had finally exhausted himself, was sitting in the dirt, breathing hard. Cole had set down his book and was watching his brother with those unsettling blue eyes. 4 years of hiding, 4 years of teaching them to control what couldn't be controlled, 4 years of pretending the world had forgotten about them. But the world didn't forget. It just waited. 2 weeks later, Silver Creek, Colorado. The trip into town was supposed to be quick. In and out, 30 minutes maximum. Sienna needed medicine. Jax had developed a fever 2 days ago. Nothing serious, probably just a cold, but Omega maternal instinct demanded antibiotics just in case. She also needed shoes. The boys were growing so fast they needed new shoes every month. And salt. You couldn't hunt salt. Gabriel was tracking a cougar that had been stalking their perimeter. Couldn't spare the time for a supply run. So Sienna made a decision. She'd take the boys, keep them in the truck. Windows tinted dark enough that nobody could see inside clearly. Quick stop at the pharmacy and the general store. 40 miles there, 40 miles back. Simple, except nothing was ever simple. Silver Creek was bigger than Oak Haven. Tourist town. Ski resort in winter. Hiking destination in summer. Population around 5,000. Big enough to have a pharmacy. Small enough that strangers stood out. Sienna parked the old Ford pickup Gabriel had rebuilt from scrap metal. Left the engine running, air conditioning on. She turned to the boys in the back seat. "Stay here," she said. Not a request, an order. "Windows are tinted, doors are locked. Do not speak to anyone. Do not get out. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Jax nodded. He understood danger, understood hiding. Cole just looked at her with those blue eyes that saw too much. "Promise me," Sienna said. "We promise, Mom," Jax said. Sienna got out, locked the doors, walked quickly toward the pharmacy. The town was busy. Saturday afternoon, families with kids eating ice cream, tourists with expensive cameras, groups of 20-somethings in hiking gear planning their next trail. Normal, human, safe. Sienna grabbed the antibiotics, paid cash, walked back toward the truck. That's when she heard the commotion. A crowd had gathered in the parking lot, 50, 60 people, all staring at something. At her truck. Sienna's heart stopped. She pushed through the crowd, saw 3 men, drunk judging by the way they swayed, banging on the truck windows. "Open the door, kid," one of them yelled. Big guy, biker jacket, beard that needed trimming. "We saw a dog in there. It's too hot for a dog." It wasn't hot. It was 65 degrees. The air conditioning was running. They weren't concerned citizens. They were looking for trouble. "Get away from my truck," Sienna said. Her voice was calm, controlled, the voice of someone who'd spent 4 years learning not to show fear. The lead biker turned, sneered. "This your ride, lady. You got illegal animals in there. We saw eyes, glowing eyes." He reached for the door handle. "Back off," Sienna warned. Her hand went to her pocket. Pepper spray. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The man laughed, grabbed her arm. "Maybe we teach you a lesson about animal cruelty." The truck door exploded outward, not opened, ripped off its hinges. The metal screamed. The door flew 6 feet and crashed into the asphalt with a sound like a car crash. And Jax leaped out. 4 years old, 40 pounds soaking wet, moved like a viper. He slammed into the biker's stomach with enough force to knock a grown man flat. The guy hit the ground hard. Wind knocked out of him. Gasping. The crowd gasped. A child had just leveled an adult. The other 2 bikers charged, drunk and angry, and not thinking clearly. That's when Cole stepped out of the truck. He looked bored, wore a hoodie 3 sizes too big, hands in his pockets, face hidden in shadow. He watched the 2 men rushing toward his brother and spoke one word. "Kneel." The word wasn't loud, it was detonated. A shockwave of invisible pressure hit the parking lot like a physical thing, like a wall of force that came from everywhere and nowhere. Every human within 50 feet dropped to their knees. Not fell, dropped, like their legs had been cut out from under them. Clutching their heads, overcome by an instinctual biological terror that their human brains couldn't process. The birds fell out of the sky. Sparrows and crows dropping from telephone wires, wings forgotten, hitting the pavement with soft thuds. Car alarms went off, every vehicle in the lot shrieking in electronic panic. The 2 bikers collapsed, vomiting. The neurological overload of an alpha command hitting a human brain was too much. Their systems couldn't handle it. Sienna stood frozen. The silence that followed was absolute. 50 people on their knees. Birds scattered across the asphalt. Car alarms wailing. And 2 small boys standing in the center of it all. Jax breathing hard, fists clenched, ready to fight. Cole perfectly calm, watching, calculating. Then Sienna saw it. In the back of the crowd, a teenage girl, pink hair, holding up her phone, recording, live streaming. "Get in," Sienna said, her voice cut through the chaos. "Now!" She grabbed both boys, shoved them into the truck through the missing door, climbed into the driver's seat. The engine was still running. She threw it into reverse, tires screeching, didn't bother with the door hanging by one hinge, just drove. Out of the parking lot, through Silver Creek, onto the highway. Behind her, she could see people starting to stand up, confused, disoriented, reaching for their phones. "Mom," Jax's voice was small, scared. "Boy, did we do something bad?" Sienna looked at him in the rearview mirror, saw the fear in his eyes, the confusion of a 4-year-old who'd only been protecting his mother. "No, baby, Brianna," she said. "You protected us, but there are bad people who want to take what makes you special." "I won't let them," Cole said quietly from the back seat. He was staring out the window, at the mountains in the distance. "There are metal birds coming," he said. Sienna's hands tightened on the wheel. Because Cole was never wrong. 5 hours later, Seattle, Washington, Sterling Estate. Declan Sterling sat in his office drinking scotch at 3 in the afternoon. The past 4 years had not been kind. Lydia was barren. Ironically, actually barren, not fake test results, real infertility that she'd hidden from everyone, including him, until after the mating ceremony. The pack was weak. Without an heir, without the promise of continuation, allies had pulled back. Business deals had fallen through, rival packs were circling, and the council was talking, quietly, about removing him, about replacing the Sterling line with someone who could actually produce the next generation. Declan poured another glass, stared out the window at the sound. Gray water under gray sky. His phone buzzed. Text from Councilman Thorne. Just a link. No message. Declan clicked it. TikTok. Video with 4.5 million views in 5 hours. Title: Mutant Kids in Colorado. Telekinetic voice. Real life. X-Men. Shaky footage. Parking lot. People screaming. Declan watched a small boy rip a truck door off its hinges with his bare hands. Watched another boy speak a single word and drop 50 people to their knees. The video was chaos. Poor quality. Hard to see faces clearly. But Declan didn't look at the powers. He looked at the woman shoving the children into the truck. Dark hair in a braid, lean, tanned, moving with efficiency born of practice. The camera caught her face for just 2 seconds as she turned. 2 seconds was enough. Declan dropped his glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Scotch spread like blood. "Sienna," he whispered. He stood up, walked to his desk, played the video again, paused it, zoomed in on the boys. The one who'd ripped the door off had black hair, Declan's hair, and eyes that even through the pixelated footage looked familiar. He pulled up a photo on his phone. Himself at 4 years old, at his birthday party, blowing out candles on a cake. Put it next to the freeze frame from the video. The same eyes, the same jaw, the same expression. "Oh, God," Declan breathed. His sons. Sienna had been pregnant when he rejected her. Dr. Vane had lied, and she'd hidden his heirs for 4 years. The rage that built in Declan's chest was volcanic. It shook the furniture, made the windows rattle. His wolf surged to the surface, demanding release, demanding blood. But underneath the rage was something else, something that felt uncomfortably like hope. She was alive, his true mate, the woman he'd loved since he was 10 years old, the bond he'd broken on his father's orders and regretted every single day since. She was alive, and she'd given him sons. Declan hit the intercom button on his desk. "Prepare the strike team," he said. His voice was shaking. Rage and hope and 4 years of repressed pain all fighting for dominance. "Full tactical, 6 choppers, and get the jet ready. We're going to Colorado." He looked at the freeze frame of the boy who looked exactly like him. "And bring Dr. Vane," he added. His voice went cold, deadly. "I want to have a very detailed conversation with him about his diagnosis 4 years ago." He ended the call, pulled up the video again, watched his sons display power that shouldn't exist. Twin alphas. The prophecy. If this got out, if the council learned that he had heirs, this powerful, everything would change. But first he had to find them, and he had to know the truth. About Vane, about Lydia, about why an Omega who was supposedly barren had given birth to the most powerful wolf pups born in 2 centuries. Declan picked up his phone, made another call. Richard Sterling's office. "Put my father on the line," Declan said. "Now." Pause. Click. Declan, his father's voice. Alpha Richard. Cold. Controlled. I saw the video. Is that what I think it is? Yes. Silence on the other end. When Richard spoke again, his voice was different. Careful. If those are your sons, Declan, this changes everything. The council can't remove you if you have twin alpha heirs. The prophecy protection, I know what it means. Declan cut him off. I also know that Sienna Mercer was told she was barren by our pack physician. I need you to have Vane brought to the estate. Quietly. No one else knows about this yet. You think Vane lied? I know he did. The question is why, and who paid him? Another pause. I'll have him picked up within the hour, Richard said. Declan, if this is what it appears to be, we need to move fast. That video has millions of views. Others will be looking too. I'm already moving, Declan said. I'll be in Colorado by nightfall. He ended the call, looked out at the gray water, the gray sky, and for the first time in 4 years, Declan Sterling felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. Find Sienna, find his sons, learn the truth, and make everyone who'd lied to him pay. Dead Man's Drop dusk. Gabriel was waiting at the perimeter when Sienna's truck came screaming up the trail. He took one look at the missing door, the terror on Sienna's face and the guilty expressions on the boys, and knew. What happened? They used their powers, Sienna said. She was shaking, adrenaline crash. In public, in front of 50 people. Someone was filming. Gabriel's face went pale. Get inside, now! They ran for the cabin. Gabriel grabbed weapons, a shotgun, a rifle, handguns, started loading magazines with practiced efficiency. How long do we have? Sienna asked. If the video went viral, hours, maybe less. He looked at her. I can hear them coming. Helicopter rotors, 6 Blackhawks, military grade. Sienna felt her world tilt. We can't outrun choppers. No, Gabriel agreed. He racked the shotgun. We can't. He looked at the boys. Jax was crying quietly. Cole was silent, watching everything with those ancient eyes. The cabin is built on a granite shelf, Gabriel said. There's only one way up on foot. I can hold them at the choke point. Buy you time. Time for what? To run, take the boys. There's a trail on the north side. Leads deeper into the wilderness. Places even choppers can't reach. Go. Now. Gabriel. I'm not asking Sienna. His voice was pure alpha command. Not the kind Cole used. The kind that came from 38 years of leading wolves. I'm fighting for them. For you. This is what I choose. Don't take that away from me. Sienna looked at him. This man who'd saved her life. Who'd delivered her children. Who'd been more of a father to them than their biological parent ever was. Thank you, she whispered. Gabriel smiled. It was tired, sad. Get them inside. Lock the steel shutters. Don't open the door unless you hear my voice. My real voice, not a recording. The sound of rotors grew louder, coming from the west, black shapes cresting the ridge. Gabriel walked out onto the porch, shotgun resting casually on his shoulder, and waited for the wolves to come. The sound of helicopter rotors was a physical thing, not just noise, pressure, vibration, the kind that rattled your teeth and made your bones hum. Sienna stood at the cabin window, steel shutters half closed, watching 6 black shapes descend into the valley like ravens circling carrion. Blackhawks, military grade, the kind of hardware that cost millions and required connections most packs didn't have. But the Sterlings weren't most packs. Mom? Jax's voice was small, scared. He stood behind her, one hand gripping her jeans. Are they coming for us? Yes, Sienna said. No point lying. The boys could smell fear. Could hear the thunder of rotors getting closer. Cole sat on the floor, cross-legged, perfectly still. Those blue eyes watching the windows like he was calculating trajectories and velocities. I can stop them, he said quietly. No. Gabriel's voice cut through the cabin. He stood by the door, shotgun in hand, rifle slung across his back. You save your strength, Cole. That power, you only use it when there's no other choice. But no, Gabriel looked at the boy, alpha to alpha. Trust me. Outside, the first helicopter touched down 200 yards from the cabin. The clearing Gabriel used for training, the only flat ground in the valley. Ropes dropped. Men descended. Fast. Professional. Military precision. 30 of them. Maybe more. All wearing tactical gear. All armed. But it was the man who stepped out of the lead chopper that made Sienna's breath catch. Declan, even at this distance, even after 4 years she knew him. The way he moved. The set of his shoulders. The tilt of his head when he was assessing a situation. He'd come himself. Stay here, Gabriel said. He racked the shotgun. The sound was loud in the quiet cabin. Final. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. Gabriel. I mean it, Sienna. He looked at her, gray eyes serious. You're their mother, that's your job. Protect them, let me do mine. He walked out before she could argue. Sienna locked the door, pressed her face to the gap in the shutters, watched Gabriel walk down the porch steps, shotgun resting casually on his shoulder. Like he was out for a Sunday stroll instead of facing down a small army. He stopped 50 feet from where Declan stood. The Sterling forces fanned out, surrounding the cabin, cutting off escape routes. Professional, efficient. Gabriel didn't move, just stood there, waiting. Declan walked forward, alone, no weapons visible. But Alphas didn't need weapons. You're trespassing, Sterling. Gabriel's voice carried clearly in the mountain air. This is rogue territory. The treaty says, the treaty doesn't apply to stolen heirs. Declan's voice was different, colder than Sienna remembered. 4 years had changed him too. I'm not here for you, Blackwood. Step aside. Can't do that. Those are my sons in that cabin. Are they? Gabriel shifted his weight. The shotgun stayed casual, but ready. Because 4 years ago you rejected their mother, publicly, called her Barren, threw her out like garbage. Declan flinched, barely, but Sienna saw it. I was deceived, Declan said. That your excuse. You were deceived. Gabriel's laugh was harsh. You chose pack law over the woman you'd known since childhood. You chose your father's approval over trust. That wasn't deception. That was cowardice. I'm not here to discuss the past. No, you're here to take what you threw away. Clean up your mistake. Pretend the last 4 years didn't happen. Declan's hands clenched. His wolf was close. Sienna could see it in the amber glow starting to edge his eyes. I'm here for my family, Declan said. His voice dropped. Dangerous. And I will go through you if necessary. Gabriel smiled. It wasn't friendly. You're welcome to try. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Declan shifted. Not fully. Partial shift. Claws extending, fangs lengthening, eyes going full amber. Gabriel dropped the shotgun. Shifted too. Bigger than Declan. Older. More scarred. They collided in a blur of motion. Inside the cabin, Jax pressed against Sienna's legs. Gabriel's fighting. I know, baby. He's fighting for us. Yes. Outside, the 2 alphas tore into each other with a savagery that made Sienna's wolf whimper. This wasn't a dominance display. This was real. Brutal. 2 alphas with 4 years of rage between them. Declan was faster, younger. But Gabriel was experienced. He'd survived a decade as a rogue. You didn't do that without learning how to fight dirty. They broke apart, circled, both bleeding, both breathing hard. That's when the second helicopter landed, not with the others, closer, just beyond the tree line. And the man who stepped out made Sienna's blood go cold. Dr. Silas Vane. But he wasn't alone. 20 men in gray tactical gear surrounded him. Different from Declan's forces, better equipped. Faces hidden behind masks. Mercenaries. Gabriel saw them. Froze. Declan, he called, warning in his voice. You bring mercenaries to a pack dispute. Declan turned, looked at the new arrivals. His face showed genuine confusion. What? He looked at his lieutenant. I didn't. Secure the assets, Vane's voice cut through the clearing. Cold. Clinical. The voice of a man giving orders he'd rehearsed. Kill the adults. The mercenaries raised their weapons. Declan's eyes went wide. Stand down, I didn't authorize, too late. The mercenaries opened fire. Not at the cabin. At Declan's forces. Chaos erupted. Sterling wolves scattered. Some shifted. Some dove for cover. 3 went down in the first volley. Tranquilizer darts. Heavy sedation. Declan roared. Shifted fully. A massive black wolf that launched itself at the nearest mercenary. Gabriel grabbed his shotgun. Fired. Took down 2 mercenaries. Pumped. Fired again. But there were too many. A dart hit Gabriel in the shoulder. He stumbled. Pulled it out. But the sedative was already working. His legs went weak. Sienna, he called. His voice was slurring. Run. North trail. Go. Another dart. His neck this time. Gabriel fell. Inside the cabin, Sienna made a decision. Boys, she said. Her voice was calm, steady. The voice of a mother who would not let her children see her fear. Listen to me very carefully. She turned, knelt, put her hands on their shoulders. Bad men are coming. They want to take you away from me. That cannot happen. Do you understand? Jax nodded, tears on his face. Cole just watched, those blue eyes seeing everything. When I open that door, Sienna continued, you stay behind me. You do not fight unless I say. You do not use your powers unless there is no other choice. Yes. Yes, Mom, Jax whispered. Cole nodded once. Sienna stood, walked to the door, unlocked it, stepped out onto the porch. The clearing was carnage. 10 of Declan's forces down, 5 mercenaries dead. The rest were fighting hand to hand. Declan in full wolf form had 3 mercenaries pinned, his jaws around one's throat. Gabriel lay motionless 50 feet away, breathing but unconscious. And walking toward the cabin flanked by 6 mercenaries was Dr. Silas Vane. He saw Sienna, smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd won. Sienna Mercer, he called, or should I say the Omega who wasn't Barren after all, quite the medical miracle. Sienna said nothing, just stood there, blocking the door. You've caused me significant trouble, Vane continued. He was 30 feet away now. 4 years of wondering if you'd surface, if the sterling brats you were carrying would survive. And then that delightful video appeared. 20 feet. You see, the genetic directorate pays very well for specimens like your sons, twin alphas. With abilities manifesting this young, that's worth $10 million each, 10 feet. So I'm afraid I'll need to take them. You unfortunately are a loose end, nothing personal, just business. He nodded to the mercenaries. Kill her, take the children. The mercenaries raised their weapons, and that's when Cole stepped out from behind Sienna. The boy looked at Dr. Vane, at the 6 armed men, at the chaos in the clearing. His eyes started to glow, not amber like a normal alpha. Blue, ice blue, like frozen fire. Cole, Sienna said quietly. Not yet. And they're going to hurt you, Mom. Not yet. They want to take us. I know, baby, not yet. One of the mercenaries laughed. Kid's eyes are glowing. What's he gonna do, stare at us? Cole looked at that mercenary and spoke. Stop. The word hit the clearing like a nuclear detonation. Not the controlled command he'd used in Silver Creek. This was raw, unleashed. 4 years of training thrown aside because his mother was in danger. Every living thing within 200 yards froze. The mercenaries, mid-step, guns raised, unable to move. Declan's forces, locked in combat, suspended like statues. The birds in the trees, motionless, wings spread. Even the wind stopped. The only sound was Cole's breathing. Harsh, ragged, blood starting to drip from his nose. Mom, he whispered. I can't hold them long. Sienna understood immediately. She ran down the porch steps, grabbed a tranquilizer gun from a frozen mercenary's hands, started firing, 1 dart per man. The mercenaries around Vane, the ones holding weapons pointed at her cabin. 6 shots, 6 men down. Dr. Vane tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Cole's command had him too. You lied to me, Sienna said quietly. She stood in front of Vane, this man who'd destroyed her life with falsified test results. You told me I was broken. You took everything from me. She pressed the tranquilizer gun to his chest. But I'm not the one who's broken, Dr. Vane. You are. She pulled the trigger. Vane's eyes went wide, then glassy. He collapsed. Cole, Sienna called. Let them go. The command released, like a dam breaking. Motion flooded back into the world. The remaining mercenaries stumbled, confused, disoriented. Half their force was down. Declan's wolves recovered faster. Pack bonds gave them cohesion. They moved as one, taking down the confused mercenaries. 90 seconds later, it was over. 20 mercenaries unconscious or dead. Declan's forces regrouping. Gabriel starting to stir. And in the center of it all, Sienna stood with her sons. Cole had collapsed, the nosebleed worse now. Jax held him crying. Declan shifted back to human form, naked, covered in blood. He walked toward them slowly, stopped 10 feet away, looked at Sienna, 4 years between them. An infinity of pain and betrayal and words unsaid. Sienna, he breathed. She met his eyes. Declan. He looked at the boys, at Cole bleeding in Jax's arms, at Jax's protective stance. They're mine, he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. Biologically, yes. Sienna's voice was hard. In every way that matters, no. Declan flinched like she'd slapped him. I know what I did, he said. I know I can't take it back. But Sienna, Vane lied. Lydia paid him to lie. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You should have known me. Her voice broke. 12 years, Declan. You should have known me better than some numbers on a paper. He had no answer for that. Gabriel groaned, sat up, the sedative wearing off, he saw Sienna standing there. The boys, Declan, started to rise. "Stay down," Declan said. "Not a command, just advice. You took 2 darts. Give it a minute." Gabriel ignored him, stood anyway, swayed. Sienna was there in an instant, supporting him. "Easy," she said. "The boy's safe." Gabriel looked at Cole. The blood, the exhaustion. He used it. He had to. "I know." Gabriel's eyes went to Declan. "What happens now?" Sterling, Declan looked at the carnage, at Vane unconscious, at the evidence scattered everywhere. "Now," he gestured to his lieutenant, "we secure the scene, we collect evidence, and we go home." "You mean you take them," Gabriel said. "I mean we all go home." Declan looked at Sienna. "There's going to be questions, counsel questions, about Vane, about Lydia, about why my pack physician just tried to sell my sons to a government agency." He took a step closer. "I need you to testify, Sienna. I need you to tell the council what happened. All of it. The false diagnosis, the rejection, everything. Why should I help you? Because this is bigger than us." He gestured at Vane. "He didn't just lie to you. 23 Omegas, Sienna. We found the records. 23 women told they were barren. All lies. All paid for by families who wanted to manipulate pack politics." Sienna's breath caught. 23. "Lydia orchestrated it," Declan continued. "With her father, Councilman Banks. They wanted the Sterling bloodline merged with theirs, and they didn't care who they destroyed to make it happen." He looked at her. "You can expose them. You can make sure this never happens to another Omega. But you have to come back." Sienna looked at Gabriel, at her sons, at the life they'd built in hiding. "If I come back," she said slowly, "I'm not coming as your mate. That bond is dead. It died 4 years ago in the diamond room." Declan nodded, face carefully blank. "I understand." "And Gabriel comes with us. He saved my life. He delivered my sons. He has earned a place in their lives." "Agreed." "And if the council tries to take my children from me, if they try to declare me unfit, if they try anything, they won't." Declan's voice was hard, steel beneath the diplomacy. "Because I'll tell them the truth, that you survived alone. Raised twin alphas in hiding for 4 years. Kept them safe from people who wanted to use them. If anyone is unfit, it's me." He looked at his sons. "I threw you away," he said to Sienna. "I chose law over love. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to make it right. Not for us, for them." Sienna looked down at Cole and Jax. Cole was awake now, watching Declan with those calculating blue eyes. "Are you our father?" Cole asked. His voice was quiet, clear. Declan knelt, brought himself to eye level with a 4-year-old who could command armies. "Yes," he said, "I am." "Did you hurt our mom?" "Yes." Cole considered this. "Are you going to hurt her again?" "No." Declan's voice was absolute. "Never again." "Promise." "I promise," Jack spoke up. "Gabriel says alphas keep their promises, even when it's hard." Declan looked at Gabriel, the rogue who'd protected his family when he'd failed to. "Gabriel is right," Declan said, "and I promise, on my life, on my pack, I will keep your mother safe." Cole looked at Sienna. "Mom, do we go?" Sienna knelt, pulled both boys close. "Yes," she said quietly, "we go, but not because your father asked. Because 23 other women need our help, because Dr. Vane needs to answer for what he's done, because the system that called me broken needs to be fixed." She looked at Declan over their heads. "We're not coming home, Declan. We're coming to testify, to fight. To make sure no Omega ever goes through what I went through." She stood, pulled the boys up. "And when it's over, when the council has heard everything, when justice is served, we decide what comes next. Not you, not the pack. Us." Declan nodded. "That's fair." He turned to his lieutenant. "Get medical on Blackwood and secure Vane. I want him locked down tight. No communication, no visitors. When he wakes up, he talks to no one but me." He looked back at Sienna. "There's room in my chopper for all of you. It's a 3-hour flight to Seattle. We'll go straight to the estate, get you settled, and tomorrow we call the council," Sienna finished. "Tomorrow we tell them everything. Tomorrow we burn it all down," Gabriel added. He'd recovered enough to stand on his own. Every lie, every conspiracy, every corrupt physician and councilman who thought Omegas were disposable. Declan met his eyes. These 2 alphas who'd been seconds from killing each other. "Together?" Declan asked. Gabriel looked at Sienna, at the boys, at the family he'd helped build. "Together," he agreed. They walked to the helicopter together, Sienna carrying Cole, Declan carrying Jax, Gabriel bringing up the rear weapons still ready. As the chopper lifted off, Sienna looked down at the cabin, at the valley that had been their sanctuary for 4 years, at the life they were leaving behind. Mom, Jax asked quietly, are we safe now? Sienna thought about what was coming, the council, the testimony, the fight to change 200 years of pack law. No baby, cow, she said honestly, but we're together and that's enough. The helicopter turned west, toward Seattle, toward justice, toward a reckoning 4 years in the making. And in the cargo hold, unconscious and restrained, Dr. Silas Vane began the journey to answer for every lie he'd ever told. The Sterling estate looked exactly as Sienna remembered, imposing, elegant, designed to intimidate. But she wasn't the same woman who'd been dragged out 4 years ago. The helicopter touched down on the private landing pad at dusk. The Pacific stretched out behind the compound, turning gold and crimson in the dying light. Declan had made calls during the flight, rapid-fire orders that revealed a man who'd spent 4 years learning how to lead a pack. Medical team standing by. Guest suites prepared, security doubled. And most importantly, emergency council session called for tomorrow morning, mandatory attendance. When they touched down, Alpha Richard Sterling was waiting. The old man looked the same, silver hair, granite face, $8,000 suit. He watched Sienna descend from the helicopter, watched Gabriel follow with a rifle still slung over his shoulder, watched Declan carry Jax while Sienna held Cole. So, Richard said, his voice carried that alpha authority that demanded obedience. The lost Omega returns, with the rogue who stole my grandsons. Gabriel didn't steal anyone, Sienna said. Her voice was calm, level. He saved us, while your pack physician was trying to sell your grandsons to a government lab. Richard's face went still. Dr. Vane is in custody, Declan said. He set Jax down carefully. The boy immediately ran to Sienna, pressing against her legs, along with evidence of a conspiracy involving Councilman Banks and his daughter. Lydia, Richard's eyes narrowed. You're certain? Vane confessed under interrogation. Declan's voice was flat. 50,000 per false diagnosis. 23 Omegas, all designed to destabilize rival packs and position Lydia as Luna. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Sienna. Really looked. Not at the Omega he'd thrown away. At the woman who'd survived. You have evidence, he asked. Yes. And you're willing to testify? Yes. Richard nodded slowly. Then tomorrow the council hears everything, and may the moon goddess have mercy on anyone who lied. He turned, walked into the house. Declan watched him go. That's as close to an apology as you'll get from him. I don't want his apology, Sienna said. I want his cooperation. You'll have it. Declan gestured toward the house. Come on, medical needs to check Cole's nosebleed. And you all need rest. The guest suite they were given had 5 rooms. Bedroom for Sienna, bedroom for the boys, bedroom for Gabriel, common area, private bathroom, a far cry from the trailer in Oak Haven. The medical team was professional. Efficient? They checked Cole's vitals, cleaned his nose, gave him electrolytes. The command takes a toll, the pack physician explained. An older woman, Dr. Helena Cross, not Vane, never Vane again. He's young. His body isn't ready for that kind of power expenditure. He needs rest, hydration, and he shouldn't use it again for at least a week. Cole nodded seriously. Okay. After medical left, Sienna got the boys settled, bath, food, clean clothes that Declan had somehow procured in their exact sizes. They ate in the common area, room service, because apparently the Sterling estate had room service. Gabriel ate in silence, watching the doors, the windows. Still on guard, Sienna understood. 4 years of protecting them didn't turn off just because they were supposedly safe. There are guards outside, Declan said quietly. He'd appeared in the doorway, changed into clean clothes, the blood washed off. My personal security, no one gets through them. No offense, Gabriel said, but your pack physician just tried to kidnap your sons. Forgive me if I don't trust Sterling security. That's fair. Declan didn't argue, just nodded. But you should rest. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. He looked at Sienna. Can we talk privately? She followed him into the hallway, left Gabriel with the boys. They walked in silence to a balcony overlooking the Sound. The same balcony where Declan had proposed 4 years ago, where she'd said yes, where their life together had begun. I'm not here for nostalgia, Sienna said. I know. Declan leaned against the railing, looked out at the water. I wanted to prepare you for tomorrow. The council. They're going to be difficult. I survived 4 years alone with twin alphas. I think I can handle some old wolves in suits. It's not about handling them. He turned to face her. They're going to question you. Your fitness as a mother. Your decision to hide the twins. They're going to try to find any excuse to remove the boys from your custody. Let them try. Sienna. No. She stepped closer. I raised those children alone. I taught them control. I kept them safe from people who wanted to use them. If the council thinks they can declare me unfit, they're welcome to try. But they'll lose. Declan smiled. It was sad. You've changed. You threw me away, Declan. I had to change. I had to become someone who could survive without you. I know. He looked down at his hands. I know what I did, and I know sorry doesn't cover it, but I need you to understand something. He met her eyes. I never stopped loving you, not for one day. Not for 1 hour. Lydia and I, we were never really mated. The bond never formed, because my wolf still belonged to you. Sienna felt something crack in her chest, the thing she'd been holding on to for 4 years. Anger, maybe, or grief. That doesn't change what you did, she said quietly. You chose law over love. You chose your father's approval over trust. And you broke us. I know. And I don't know if I can forgive that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. His voice was raw, honest. I'm asking for a chance to be a father to our sons, to help you fight this fight, to make sure no one ever hurts you again. Sienna looked at him. This man she'd loved since childhood, this alpha who'd destroyed her and somehow impossibly given her the greatest gifts of her life. Tomorrow we testify, she said. We expose Vane. We expose Lydia. We burn down the conspiracy. After that, we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Declan nodded. That's all I'm asking. They stood in silence, watching the sun disappear into the Pacific. And Sienna thought about the council hearing tomorrow, about the fight ahead, about the 23 other Omegas who deserved justice. She was ready. The next morning, the council chamber was packed. Not just the 7 high council members, but representatives from every major pack in North America. Alphas, betas, even some Omegas, though they sat in the back where they were supposed to. The chamber itself was ancient, carved from stone in the Nevada Badlands where the treaty had been signed, transported piece by piece to Seattle when the council headquarters moved. Sienna walked in wearing simple clothes, jeans, a sweater, nothing fancy. She wasn't here to impress them. She was here to tell the truth. Declan and Gabriel flanked her. The boys were with Helena Cross, somewhere safe. The 7 council members sat at a raised platform. Elder wolves, ancient, powerful. In the center sat High Elder Thorne, 70 years old, white-haired, eyes that had seen the Great War. This session is called to order, he said. His voice filled the chamber without amplification. Pure alpha projection. We gather to hear testimony regarding serious allegations against Dr. Silas Vane, Councilman, Aldrich Banks, and Lydia Banks. The charges include medical fraud, conspiracy to manipulate PAC politics, and attempted kidnapping of alpha heirs. He looked at Sienna. Sienna Mercer, you will give your testimony. Sienna stood, walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye on her, hundreds of wolves, judging, assessing. She'd been afraid of this moment once. Not anymore. 4 years ago, she began. I was told I was barren, infertile, unable to carry children. This diagnosis came from Dr. Silas Vane, the most respected geneticist in PAC society. A man with 47 published research papers. A man we were supposed to trust, she paused. He lied. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. He lied because Lydia Banks paid him $50,000 to falsify my test results, to ensure that Declan Sterling would reject me, to clear the way for Lydia to become Luna of the Black River Pack. She pulled out a folder, documents Gabriel had recovered. These are wire transfer records, $50,000 from an account controlled by Aldrich Banks to an offshore account belonging to Silas Vane, dated November 8, 2019, 6 days before my diagnosis. She held them up. This is the lab report Dr. Vane showed me. Omega-tropic hormone 0.2, uterine lining 1.8 millimeters, complete infertility. She pulled out another document. This is the lab report from January 2020 from an independent healer in Colorado. Omega-tropic hormone 4.2, perfectly fertile, 8 weeks pregnant with twins. The murmurs grew louder. Doctor Vane didn't make a mistake. He committed fraud, and Lydia Banks paid him to do it. Elder Thorne leaned forward. These are serious accusations, Ms. Mercer. Do you have proof beyond financial records? Yes. Gabriel stood, walked forward. With the council's permission. Thorne nodded. Gabriel pulled out a small device. Audio recorder. This was recorded 3 days ago at the Sterling grocery store on Capitol Hill. Lydia Banks was speaking with her father. They didn't notice the cashier. He pressed play. Lydia's voice crystal clear. Father, the Mercer Omega is handled. Vane confirmed her results. Declan will reject her by week's end. Then I take the Luna position, and the Sterling bloodline merges with ours, just like we planned. Aldrich's voice, equally clear. Good. What about the others? 22 more on the list. Vane says he can handle them all. Same protocol, false diagnosis, rejection, replacement with our allies. Excellent. The council will never know. The recording ended. Silence, absolute, suffocating silence, then chaos. Alphas shouting, council members demanding order, pack representatives calling for blood. Elder Thorne's voice cut through it all. Silence! The command was backed by 2 centuries of authority. Every wolf in the chamber felt it, submitted to it. Thorne looked at the chamber doors. Bring in Dr. Vane and Lydia Banks. The doors opened. Sterling security brought them in, shackled, flanked by guards. Vane looked smaller than Sienna remembered. Defeated. He'd confessed everything during Declan's interrogation. There was nothing left to hide. Lydia looked furious, defiant. Her expensive dress wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled. She saw Sienna standing there, confident, whole, and Lydia's face twisted with hate. You were supposed to disappear, Lydia hissed. You were supposed to die in some human city, alone, forgotten. I survived, Sienna said simply, and I had help. From people who knew what pack law was supposed to mean. Protection, not manipulation. Thorne's voice was ice. Dr. Vane, you have heard the evidence. Do you deny it? Vane shook his head. No, Elder, I do not. And you, Lydia Banks, do you deny your involvement? Lydia lifted her chin. I did what was necessary. The Sterling bloodline needed strengthening. Sienna Mercer was weak, low status, unsuitable for... She carried twin alphas, Thorne interrupted. She raised them alone for 4 years. She taught them control when most trained alphas cannot. She survived against odds that would have broken stronger wolves. Tell me, Lydia Banks, what about that is weak? Lydia had no answer. Thorne stood. The chamber fell silent. The evidence is clear. The testimony is damning. Dr. Silas Vane and Lydia Banks conspired to defraud Pack Society, to manipulate alpha bloodlines for political gain, to destroy the lives of innocent Omegas. He looked at the other council members. Each nodded in turn. The verdict is unanimous. Dr. Silas Vane, you are hereby stripped of all medical licenses, exiled from every treaty pack, and sentenced to 20 years in pack custody. Vane closed his eyes, accepted it. Lydia Banks, you are exiled permanently. All assets seized, your family name stricken from council records. Lydia screamed, you can't. My father is a councilman. Hipang, your father, Thorne said coldly, will be investigated thoroughly, and if his involvement is proven, he will join you in exile. He gestured to the guards. Remove them. And as they were dragged away, Lydia's eyes found Sienna one last time. This isn't over, she hissed. Yes, Sienna said quietly. It is. When they were gone, Thorne turned to Sienna. There is still the matter of the bond rejection. Alpha Sterling rejected you based on fraudulent information. Under treaty law, that rejection is invalid. He looked at Declan. Do you wish to reinstate the bond? Every eye turned to Declan. He looked at Sienna, at the woman who'd been stronger than he'd ever been, who'd survived what he'd done to her, who'd become someone extraordinary. I wish to offer reinstatement, he said carefully, but the choice is Sienna's. It has always been her choice. I just didn't honor that 4 years ago. Thorne looked at Sienna. The council recognizes your right to choose. What say you? Sienna took a breath. I don't want the bond reinstated, she said. Gasps, murmurs. Not because I hate him, not because I want revenge, but because that bond was broken. And broken things, sometimes they can't be fixed. Sometimes you have to build something new. She looked at Declan. I don't know what we are now. Co-parents maybe, allies in this fight, but mates that died 4 years ago in the diamond room. And I don't want to resurrect it. Declan's face was carefully blank, but his eyes showed pain, acceptance, understanding. I respect that, he said quietly. Thorne nodded. Then it is decided. The bond remains severed, but custody of the twin alphas will be shared. Sienna Mercer retains primary custody. Declan Sterling has visitation rights and financial responsibility. He looked at Gabriel. And you, Gabriel Blackwood, the rogue who protected them. What do you ask of this council? Gabriel stepped forward. Permission to remain in Sterling territory, as guardian and teacher to the twins, with the mother's consent. Thorne looked at Sienna. Do you consent? Yes, Sienna said without hesitation. Gabriel saved our lives. He delivered my sons. He has earned his place in their lives. Then it is granted. Thorne looked at the assembled packs. But there is still work to be done. 23 Omegas were falsified. 23 lives destroyed. We must find them, retest them, offer compensation and justice. He looked at Sienna. This council proposes the creation of the Omega Advocacy Board, an independent organization dedicated to protecting Omega rights, ensuring accurate medical diagnoses, preventing future abuses. He paused. We would like you to lead it, Sienna Mercer. The chamber erupted. Some in support, some in outrage. An Omega leading a council-sanctioned board unprecedented. But Thorne raised his hand. Silence fell. Do you accept? Sienna looked at Gabriel, at Declan, at the life she could build, not as someone's mate, not as someone's property, but as herself. Yes, she said, I accept. 6 months later, the Omega Advocacy Center occupied a small building in downtown Seattle. Nothing fancy, just 3 rooms and a waiting area, but it was theirs. Sienna sat at her desk reviewing case files. 23 Omegas had been found, 18 were fertile, had been lied to. Their lives destroyed for politics. She'd met with each one personally, helped them get retested, connected them with resources. 7 had reunited with their original mates. 4 chose to stay with their new partners. 5 started new lives entirely. And every single one thanked her for fighting. A knock on the door. Come in. Declan entered. He visited once a week. Regular visitation with the boys. Professional. Cordial. They were learning how to be co-parents. It was awkward sometimes. Painful occasionally. But it worked. Jax wanted me to give you this, he said. Handed her a drawing. Crayon on construction paper. 3 stick figures. Mom, Jax, Cole. All smiling. Sienna smiled. Put it on her wall with the others. How was the visit? She asked. Good. Cole is reading at an 8th grade level now. Jax can shift both hands simultaneously. Declan sat in the chair across from her. They're extraordinary, Sienna. What you've done with them. What we've done, she corrected gently. You're teaching them pack politics. Gabriel teaches combat and control. I teach them to be kind. They need all of it. They sat in comfortable silence. I should go, Declan said finally. Council meeting tonight. The Omega Protection Amendment goes to vote. Will it pass? It will. Too much momentum now. Your work has changed things, Sienna. Really changed things. He stood, hesitated. I know I don't say this enough, but I'm proud of you. What you've built. Who you've become. Sienna looked up at him. This man who'd broken her heart, who'd also given her the strength to rebuild. Thank you, she said, and meant it. After he left, Sienna stood at the window, watched the city, the pack members walking below, Omega's moving freely now, protected by new laws, new precedents. Her phone buzzed. Gabriel. Boys are asking about the mountains. Want to take them camping next weekend? She smiled. Type back. Yes. The 3 of us. 4, Gabriel corrected. Declan asked to come, said he wants to learn survival skills. Sienna considered, then typed, okay, 4, because broken things couldn't always be fixed. But sometimes if you were patient, you could build something new, something different, something that worked. She looked at the drawing on her wall, 3 stick figures smiling, and she thought about adding a 4th. Maybe someday. For now, this was enough.